There are a ton of overused and vague, ambiguous buzzwords used in the digital transformation industry. I want to talk about what those top 10 buzzwords are and exactly what they mean here in today's video. My name is Eric.kimberling, and I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients with their digital transformation journeys. And the ERP and technology, digital transformation industry loves to create buzzwords. It's a way to express value. It's a way to speak a different language. But the problem is that a lot of us don't understand what any of this stuff means. So what I want to talk about today are what are those top 10 buzzwords and what in the world do they mean and how does it apply to your organization? The first buzzword that's commonly used in the industry is the term art of the possible. A lot of ERP vendors, software vendors, system integrators will use that term to describe a sort of future state vision of how technology could help your organization. Now, this is all great, but oftentimes this term is misused as sort of an emotional feel-good sort of thing that gets you convinced that you should deploy technologies that maybe you shouldn't be deploying. And just because a technology exists and just because there's a more sophisticated, advanced technology out there doesn't necessarily mean it's the right fit for your organization, doesn't necessarily mean that it's even going to help your organization. So art of the possible, take it for what it's worth. Certainly create a future vision state, but recognize that art of the possible is a brilliant marketing message that means very little. So when you hear the term art of the possible, be sure you're thinking of it in the context of what's good for your business and what's realistic for your organization. Another term commonly used in the space is digital core. And there's two meanings of this, or in my opinion, there's two meanings. There's the real intended meaning, which is it's the core part of your operations related to financials, inventory management, and sort of the core back office business operations and technology that can help automate some of those core operations. What I think a second definition or meaning of digital core means, which is not the intended definition, but I'll give it my own definition, is that a lot of technologies are not yet mature enough to deal with anything but the digital core. So a lot of times software vendors will talk about how we don't need to worry about all these advanced technologies, partly because they're not fully developed or fully baked yet in many cases for a lot of vendors. So we're just going to focus on the digital core and show you the part of the software that works well and hide from you the part of the software that doesn't work so well. So digital core is a real thing, but understand what the hidden meaning of that term really means and look at what are some of those outlying technologies if you're implementing a core ERP system. What are those outlying technologies that may not be fully baked yet? And make sure you understand what those weaknesses are as part of your evaluation of potential software vendors. And what might be the most annoying term in this top 10 list, in my opinion, is the term future-proof. I personally don't think there is any such thing as something that's future-proof, but what vendors and people in the industry typically mean by that is implementing technology that makes you as an organization future-proof. And if you think that technology is going to help you be future-proof, then you probably have bigger problems to deal with. So recognize the term future-proof for what it is, which is basically saying we have great new technology, great new emerging technologies. It can help advance your business, but at some point that technology will indeed be obsolete and you'll have to replace it just like every other technology you've probably implemented within your organization. So be leery of the term future-proof, but recognize the benefit of it as well. Another example of industry analysts with too much time on their hands is the term human-centric. Human-centric is intended to mean that it's technology or change or transformation that's focused on humans and is adaptable by humans. I would argue that no technology on its own is going to be easily adapted by humans. You need organizational change management. You need to help guide people through the transformation and the adoption of technology. So the term human-centric suggests that the technology itself can easily be adopted. And while technology has advanced to become easier to use and better user interfaces and things of that nature, it's still a big change for most organizations. So when you hear the term human-centric, don't think of it as a silver bullet that's technology that's going to be easy to adapt, but rather think of it from an organizational change perspective and how we adapt and allow humans to adapt to that new technology. Now, fifth on our list is customer experience, and this is a term that I actually think has a lot of value and it means a lot, and I think it has a lot of clear definition if you use it appropriately. And customer experience is really using technology and your view of technological and operational changes from the context or the view of your customers. What is their interaction with your organization and with your team look like, and how can you improve that customer experience so it makes it easier for them to do business with you? And so examples might include CRM or customer relationship management. That's an example of a technology that can help with your customer experience. Even some back office functions or technologies like manufacturing or warehouse management those sorts of technologies also provide a better customer experience because it provides better product delivery to your customers or better service to your customers. So think about customer experience from that regard and really viewing your process improvements not just to improve processes or change processes, but to do so in the context of how you can optimize your customer experience. Sixth on our list is another term that I actually think there's a lot of value, and I think it's a good direction for the industry to be going, is the concept of employee experience. And employee experience is a lot similar to customer experience, except we're focused on our own employees rather than customers. And the reason this is so important is because it gives us another lens to evaluate technological and operational changes and the way we manage our transformation to ensure that people within our organization are actually able to have a better experience and have an easier job and be more effective and efficient in their jobs. So again, it's just a different lens of looking at or evaluating your project and making sure that you're delivering something that's usable and adaptable by your own employees. Big data is another term that's commonly used in the industry, and this is another real term that has real value and meaning. And what big data essentially means is if you think about the average organization that has decades of transactions in history and master data, customer transactions, financial reports, that sort of thing, you have massive amounts of data that get accumulated over time. And that in and of itself is sort of what big data is, but what big data really is taking all that data and now managing it and providing better visibility and meaning to that data. So things like business intelligence and predictive analytics can be examples of ways that you can leverage big data to add more value to your organization. So big data is what I would consider a good trend or a good thing to be focused on because it forces you to think about how we don't just accumulate more data and capture more data, but how do we make better use of it and how do we make better decisions as a result. Industry 4.0 is another common term, especially if you're in the manufacturing, distribution, or supply chain industry. And Industry 4.0 is essentially the fourth industrial revolution is what it's technically referring to. And what the fourth industrial revolution is the automation of manufacturing and the automation of supply chains. And while this has been going on for decades, this is nothing new in terms of the actual automation piece of it. Now we're taking it to a whole nother level of automation with Internet of Things, with robotics, with sensors on the shop floors capturing tons of data and collecting tons of data that we never had before. So it's a combination of automation, data, and capturing, collecting, and gathering and making use of that data to be more efficient, more effective, and more productive overall. We often hear people talk about resilient organizations or resiliency as a priority in any sort of transformation. But what exactly does that mean? Well, when we think of resiliency, we think of flexibility, we think of somewhat of agility, and the ability of organizations to adapt to changing situations. So you think about the pandemic, the global pandemic, and how that impacted so extremely so many different businesses. And the most resilient organizations were the ones that were able to adapt quickly, and they were able to be flexible, and they were able to adapt to the new environment. The ones that weren't resilient were the ones that had the most trouble and in some cases failed. So when we think about resiliency as it relates to our transformation, we want to be thinking about how can we build a flexible set of business processes that can change on a dime, that can adapt to changing environments, that can account for the unexpected in the future, and that can generally provide us a longer term business value and ROI out of our transformation. So think about resiliency as one of the things you incorporate into your transformation. Now, the final thing on our top 10 list is Agile. Agile is something that's similar to resiliency. It alludes to flexibility, but it also alludes to speed and the ability to deploy technology, deploy changes very quickly. And that could be because you're being disrupted in your industry, or it could be because you proactively want to get ahead of the competition and you want to roll out new technologies, new processes very quickly. Now, be leery of Agile because on one hand, you do want to be agile, you want to be faster, but on the other hand, you want to be smart and you want to be deliberate and you want to plan. And sometimes those two things can be in conflict or direct conflict. So if you can find the best of both worlds where you do take the time to plan and map out what your strategy is and have a clear roadmap, define your requirements and your future state processes, then when you go to roll out those changes, you can do that in more of an agile nature. So that's the meaning of Agile, which is a commonly used buzzword in the industry as well. So I hope this has helped explain and translate some of these buzzwords that are commonly used and add some meaning and real-world examples of how they can be used within your organization. For more information on digital transformation best practices and how to leverage some of those best practices, I encourage you to download our 2021 Digital Transformation Report. I've included a link below in the description field, so check that out. It's a free download. I've also included a number of other digital transformation resources meant to help you through your journey. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day.